Toronto, knock is not Canada, I hear this often here. And in fact, this metropolis somewhat breaks the stereotype of a sparsely populated northern country. Almost all migrants who moved to Canada aim for Toronto, and more than half of the city's residents were not born in Canada, but came here from other countries. Toronto is called the Canadian New York, and they really are similar, both in appearance and in the frantic pace of life, which is not so easy to keep up with. A city of opportunities. Many strive to get to Canada at any cost, but once here illegally, starting to live well is a difficult task, a tough challenge.
You'll be constantly working hard, one day on the construction site. Only one managed to endure. 2 tanks.
Yet many newcomers who work hard and tirelessly succeed here to successfully achieve their own version of the Canadian dream and joyfully build their young Canadian families.
You see, this is from Canada. I'm Russian. My wife is Afghan. I went to the casino and lost 20,000 there. 10,000 for a long time. That's hers.
I'm Orthodox, and my wife is specifically Muslim. We can have an icon hung and the Koran lying next to it.
Canada and the States are not only compared, but often and quite frequently contrasted.
People are kinder than Americans. They wave at you. Leave Canada.
Gradually, over time, mild-mannered Canada is becoming tougher.
Everyone came here, lives peacefully, harmoniously, but now not quite.
Now they are very aggressive, so don't walk the streets at all, especially during the night.
Not every week, but you will see someone in the city center, someone shooting.
If you get hit in the unfortunate event that you do, you need to turn, smile a little first, and then kindly say, please don't hit me.
Canada is a developed country, and it looks great, but all this requires money and high taxes.
They will take even your last pair of underwear from you.
Regarding freedom of speech, it doesn't exist here. Not at all.
Today we are talking about the sweet and not so simple life in one of the coolest metropolises in the world. While we start, subscribe to my Telegram and YouTube. Let's go.
Toronto, Mom.
This is Canada from above. Green, neat and quiet. I found no towering skyscrapers in sight because I had landed at the small, quaint Hamilton Airport, which is located near Toronto. From international flights, only one to Reykjavik. On the bus, as if spellbound, I watched the door the whole way instead of the window. I just kept waiting for it to simply fly off on a bigger pothole in the road. This is already downtown Toronto. The city center, which is often compared to New York's Manhattan, and even movies about New York are often filmed here. They are so similar. In movies, I often notice these kinds of ice cream trucks. Bears don't walk the streets, nor is there snow. Not at all, but do you understand what I mean? In Canada, you can tell by the hockey theme. This is the arena where the local team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, plays.
And tickets for the playoffs, especially, can be 1,000 plus. So how did you get into hockey? I like hockey. Which club do you support? I like the Maple Leafs.
There were about 5-6 players from the Angels who played for the Maple Leafs. They were my clients. I housed them. One of them lived here. Bremner.
This is Oleg, and he went to find out where these beauties came from. People in Toronto are very colorful and diverse, especially today when another festival is taking place here.
Look what a Malvina standing against the same colors.
You turn the corner and there's a concert being prepared. And in general, there's a lot of music in downtown.
Not all oddballs in Toronto are harmless. This part is not very safe. There are a lot of people who live in social housing. It's a bit unsettling to even walk near them. It's interesting how their system is set up here. People who live in these psychiatric, mentally a bit abnormal or well abnormal. They are not in a closed facility. They have the right to go out on the street here. They are in the city among people. So when you see someone a bit off on the street or in the bus, you might be standing next to families. Well, it's better not to look them in the eyes when they provoke. Why are they given social housing downtown and not somewhere in the suburbs? The whole city here is divided. There isn't a situation where the rich are here and the poor are there. You can walk down a nice street, houses worth $2 million, and suddenly There are houses where it's scary to be. They're already there for 700,000. You see, nothing is divided here. Rich, poor. Everything here is mixed.
Oleg moved to Canada with his family more than 10 years ago.
I always wanted my children to grow up in a different country and to obtain a different passport, ensuring their safety.
Great.
So we'll just film the ant?
Before moving, Oleg imagined Canada quite differently.
I wanted everything at once. I wanted to arrive and say, okay, I've come to Canada, everyone owes me. We all painted such pictures for ourselves that here there are trees, where there are money gardens, you come there and pick money, or you wake up in the morning and take money out from under the pillow. I took a long time to assimilate. Everyone thinks like that, those who want to come here, well, the majority. They think, first I'll emigrate to Canada, get into business, without even considering what this business is. You can do it here, and they think they'll figure it out on the spot, but it's impossible to do business here like we do back home. You think if I can't succeed in business, then I'll just get a job. But it means something like no matter what, I'll find a good job. Canada has changed me, and I've become more tolerant. I've started to see other nationalities differently. Before Canada, we were used to referring to people from Africa as black. There, we used to call people from China yellow or slant-eyed or Chinamen. I'm really pleased that you can enter, I don't know, like a mall or an elevator, and my mind opens up, and a person from, let's say, Africa is standing there and he says good morning to you and smiles. Or does he?
Maybe it's not just that I enjoy being told. Good morning, but in Toronto, you can say good morning too. Even world-famous movie stars.
The day before yesterday, Schwarzenegger was riding a bike, filming a movie as he rode down Kalinin Avenue. The film is about prostitutes and everything that happened there in the 90s. Before COVID, about 10 years ago, probably around 60% of all Hollywood movies were filmed in Canada, either on this side or in Vancouver.
Cheaper filming in Canada than USA. Movies such as Titanic, Twilight, The Revenant, It, Inception, X-Men were shot here.
There are a huge number of American companies here. America has a presence everywhere.
Every day, Oleg drives past a former airfield where the world's coolest blogger, Mr. Beast, is planning a major project. In this place, thousands of bloggers will compete for $5 million. Driving a bit further out of the city, the farms begin. The myths about the northern country are collapsing, one by one. Outside the window, there are endless cornfields, and peaches, apples, melons, and berries are growing. The prices, however, are astronomical. Corn is almost $1 a piece. Many farms have their own stores, and it's like a whole collective farm. Horse paddocks, tractors, and even a mini hotel. Here's a rare moment when Canadian farmers are resting and basking in the sun. Everything is aimed at tourism and sports. The golf course yields as much as the cornfield. In the morning, the birds are chirping here.
Look, it's scary. We're filming in Kaitsevo. Yes.
And this is Valery, and we are heading to his home in the suburb of Toronto, Richmond Hill.
It used to be all empty. This plaza wasn't here, and these houses weren't here either. Everything was empty here. There was one collective farm, and when I moved here, they built a new neighborhood. And everything was very quiet, peaceful. There was no one around.
Well, Richmond sounds like something wealthy.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Back then, it was just considered a good area, and the prices here were higher than in other areas. Today, in principle, the prices, I think, are the same, already expensive. But there's a difference of 100, 200,000, I don't know, when it's over $1 million, like 1.5 and 1.7. I don't even see the difference anymore. What's the difference between 1.5 and 1.7? Where would a private citizen get $1 million? The neighbors are Afghans. He and Nikover decided to dry. Opposite, Pakistanis. Here, Chinese. Here, Indians in general, when we arrived here. Russians lived here, Filipinos lived there. Filipinos lived here, A Canadian lived opposite. Some kind of slave lived. Almost everything changed. I think I'm the only one left with neighbors. How do you communicate? Well, you see here, people are not like us, where it's customary to say, "Hello, how are you? Everything is fine, nice weather. Oh, and we'll have rain the day after tomorrow." And that's roughly the level at which all communication happens here. Just about nothing. About nothing. And across from us here, these are Pakistanis. They like to come over. That is, they would bring us all sorts of sweets, and then we have to return the favor, bring them sweets too. And so they try to have some closer contact, but we keep a bit of a distance. And here are the Vietnamese. They don't speak English at all, they always smile. You ask them how they are doing, and they smile. Everything is clear.
Valery lives with his wife, child, and mother-in-law. He is a lawyer and often works from home.
It's like a second office. From here, because I can close myself off, here, if I have a hearing, I can conduct it from home. Online. Yes, online. There are online courts. We don't have time to sit in backyards. You know, like in the yard and grill kebabs and relax. We are working all the time. The audibility here is unreal. That is, you hear everything the neighbor is doing. Grilling meat, you hear how he grills it. It sizzles. Yes. And because of this, I don't even like being here, because there's absolutely no privacy.
And the houses here are all similar, right?
Yes, they are all roughly the same. Honestly, just look at the distance between the houses. Well, it's just, what kind of distance is that? That is, you are breathing.
In your neighbor's ear.
You can walk together there.
Valeria's neighborhood is prestigious and international. Few Toronto areas are like this.
They all first moved to Europe, and then from Europe, they are moving here now.
And the Canadian leadership is kind of dealing with it.
Well, they can't really do much. So there's actually a lot of resistance from the Muslims here.
Yes, because they and their wives cannot work at all. Daughters don't work, wives don't work, only the men and sons.
They have a lot of children.
Yes.
And they take care of the children.
Thousands.
The men work from morning till night. By the way, it's not entirely true that they say Afghans live on welfare. Men, it's generally not accepted for them to sit at home, lying on the couch. The wife stays at home. Yes, she receives money, child benefits, allowances. It's not bad, it's enough for them.
This is not the area Valery was talking about, but rather the quite prosperous Markham. It's multicultural, but today there's a celebration for Muslims here. This is preparation.
Today is Saturday. There will be a celebration, a carnival for them. At 12 o'clock, people from the nearby areas will come and they will celebrate with their children.
They have popcorn, a little festival right by the mosque, right? Most immigrants to Canada come from southern countries.
I even had guys from Russia. They came from Kazakhstan, studied here. They looked at this job market and they were finishing university. That is, they almost had a bachelor's or master's degree. So they are qualified people. They are very talented. I look at them and they looked around, tried things out. They say, well, why should I work here? I have back home in Darbank awaiting me.
There are a lot of Indians in Toronto. They quickly set up schemes for legalization through fake student visas.
How did it work? You could establish a college. You needed a small initial capital. You rented some kind of space in a basement or somewhere else small. You registered it. And you could already, after obtaining all these permits, bring in international students, a printing press for student visas, and they were just handing them out by the hundreds. There are colleges, I won't name them, but they were making millions, and there would be some kind of program for hairdressers. An Indian would go to study to become a hairdresser. Yeah, he has a question. Where are the authorities looking? They give him a visa to become a hairdresser so he can study at this college. Why?
This is Moldovan Andrei, who accidentally met his friends in downtown Toronto. He himself also came on a student visa and stayed illegally.
Let's keep in touch, yeah. Let's go to the left. Who are these guys? Friends? Mine. By the way, we celebrated a birthday at one of their places. Was it just recently? Just this weekend?
We're just walking with him in a neighborhood where almost all the signs are simply in Chinese, and it's not even Chinatown.
Even by the language, it's all Chinese people around.
The food in the establishments is also Asian.
It came to $19, but it was incredibly tasty.
Upon arriving for studies, Andrei was shocked by the cost of living and education, which he immediately abandoned. He realized that a large amount of money was needed here.
He didn't have such a reserve.
How much money did you have?
Maybe $3,000, something like that, which ran out quickly. Damn, very quickly I had a teacher, an acquaintance who immediately helped with housing for $1,000. Some of it went towards housing, which was a significant portion of the expenses. It was just a small room, and I didn't go through with the plan. And they didn't start sending troops there either during the time I didn't even go there.
So, did you end up paying anything for the studies?
Yes, I paid about $3,000. That was the first installment.
Didn't pay?
No. I was supposed to pay those installments, but I didn't even want to go there. I thought I still had the visa.
Thank you, guys.
I could still walk around here.
But the visa was cancelled immediately. For a long time, Andrei was undocumented, and recently he applied for asylum. Will it take long?
Yes, it can last a year, 2, 3.
During all this time, he cannot leave the country. Are you ready for that?
Since I've already applied, yes, I realized that kind of due to lack of choice, because dealing with documents here is very, very difficult. From my point of view, in my opinion, there are significantly more prospects here, even if you go through such a tough, you could say, process with all the documents. But if everything will work out, but you can kind of...
You compared salaries, right? Everything is not cheap, but according to Andrei, prices are not the only problem. Being an illegal immigrant. For example, healthcare is inaccessible. And was there also a risk that, I don't know, you'd be caught on the street and deported?
There is such a risk. Not always. Because, yes, if you find yourself in a certain situation, and there, for example, if the police start an inspection, then it's kind of like...
Let's say you got drunk in a club, got into a fight, it could end in deportation. Of course. But were you careful when you were in a tussle?
Yes, that's also a problem. When you're illegal, you can't quickly find housing here or some good option, because they mostly ask for documents, etc.
How did you find it? Through acquaintances?
Through acquaintances, yes. Also, you can't really go anywhere if you want to, for example, even on vacation somewhere. If you're illegal, you can't travel.
Not even to a club?
Not even to a club, yes. You just look at pictures here.
Will you be able to fly out once the whole process is over?
The fate of illegal immigrant is hard work.
My first job was moving.
Moving is about relocations. Andrei moved a lot of furniture, but he got cash every day.
It was there.
Do you remember something that was so heavy you could barely lift it, and now they were moving us?
It's just a piano, if it's old, made of oak and from such wood, then you can just strain yourself. And also in the area of Star, 50, well, it depends on how many hours you work, but they tried to stretch the time. If done properly, time is spent anyway on preparing everything, getting food ready, whatever they give.
He himself also indeed wanted to already...
Settings went one day. Just to endure one day there, it turns out, was just that much. When it just pours, there's no concrete and window. You are this... I looked around. I believe this is my last visit here. It was even just a little bit worse than moving.
Now Andrei is repairing roofs, but generally tell us how much you have to work here to live decently, depending on how you like to live and
what lifestyle you're used to. Because if you want to have money, then you basically won't have time. There are cash, explosions, things like that. You will be constantly working hard at your job. If you want a bit of a slow pace, taking it easy, resting on Saturdays and Sundays, working from morning until 10, for example, then For instance, you won't be able to afford much because it all depends on the salary.
Which path did you choose?
Well, for me, the schedule kind of falls apart separately. I basically tried to work hard.
Are you saving slowly?
Well, you see, I didn't to try, but there are a substantial amount of expenses here. Unfortunately, it happened with the documents. I tried to save, and then, unfortunately, some problem comes up, and everything goes there.
You worked as an IT specialist in Moldova, quite a prestigious profession. Don't you miss those good old times when you just went to the office, relaxed, and just drank a nice cup of coffee?
Basically, yes. I do definitely miss it. Yeah. Especially since, as soon as I arrived, everything changed so abruptly, you know. It was quite a shock. Leaving the office job here, you already had to work both physically and professionally, which was quite demanding. Yes, you absolutely cannot work until you legalize yourself properly here. I couldn't because I was an illegal immigrant and I had to improve my English.
Staying here without a job, it's hard to even imagine.
And those social programs, they don't really help. They give you $700 a month, and what are you going to do with that?
That's not even enough for a bed in a hostel.
That's really nothing at all.
Even families where everyone simply works can't always afford much.
The salary there, I don't know, is $3,500 a month. Net after taxes, $3,500 means you're roughly earning $5,000 gross, around $5,500. That's about $60,000 to $70,000 a year. It seems like it's not a good salary, but those $3,500 will only be $2,200 or $2,500 for you.
An apartment, costs, and surviving on $1,000. Looking at the job market from the outside, it's not a very enviable position. In reality, if everyone works a lot and lives modestly, at least this concerns housing.
It used to be different. That is, before you could work and you could earn enough to buy yourself an apartment, a house. And that's why people came here. In the last 8 to 9, 10 years, this has changed.
And what do Indians think? You have to come here and work 3 jobs just to rent a bed, simply.
That's normal for them. He comes here knowing he'll sleep in a room with 5 other Indians. He's like, yeah, I do the same at home with 5. He had the same at home here. Do you know how they buy cars? 4 Indians buy 1 car. And they split the payments. So they take like, well, a decent one, and they split it by the week, so 2 days are yours, 2 days are mine, 2 days for someone else, and there are 2 more days. That's how they share the car. For example, Tim Hortons. There's a joke now that it's an Indian cafe.
One of those Indians is driving me right now, actually. His name is Vasi, and he shares the car with another Indian. When you're at home, this car collaborates with another driver at your convenience. In this way, both Indians have extra income and a car for personal use in a seamless manner. 350, 40, 50, 100, build. And do you have a car?
Yes.
Do you have a daughter? Yes, indeed I have 2 children.
2, yes. Later, when I return home, I will go home, have a meal, eat breakfast. I take my daughter to school.
You have 2 jobs, right?
2 jobs, private jobs. He has been in Canada for 2 years.
How many years have you been here? Approximately 2 years.
2 years? What gives you more money?
Is it the job at Uber, which involves driving and offers flexible hours? Or the factory job, which is more stable and offers higher pay? The factory gives more money, providing a better financial situation and ensuring a steady income. The factory gives more money.
They pay me $20 an hour. $20? And now I work 3 hours and make $50.
And here is the coffee chain jokingly called Indian. On the door, there's a hockey stick because the chain was created by Canadian hockey player Tim Hortons. Inside, there's cheap coffee and donuts.
It seems like traditional national Canadian food.
Yeah.
Well.
It spoils your appetite.
Donuts.
Did you notice how the girl was serving?
Very unsmiling.
Very smiling. Look, she's still smiling. It seems like a lot of people come to the bar, but they work in the service industry and they handle themselves well. They provide good service. I like it. In another place you go, in the same Starbucks, maybe a cable car. You don't feel like buying coffee from her?
She might even tell you to go home. They drew something for me too. Not genitals, but a smiley face. Rivers? Thanks already. A similar coffee shop in downtown. Tim Hortons is the Canadian answer to Starbucks. Such coffee shops are found everywhere, in any city, in any neighborhood. Interestingly, they cost next to nothing. Not all Canadian monopolies are as cheap as this coffee shop. With telecommunications, for example, it's the opposite.
There are effectively two big players here that provide internet, television, and so on, because they are the only ones with cables. These are Rogers and Bell. That's it. They don't let anyone else in. In America, everything is completely different. There is competition. There are a huge number of insurance companies, airlines, banks, telecommunications companies. And that's why the prices for the same phone are completely different there.
It seems like a developed Western country, a free market, liberals in power, yet monopolies still rule.
Canada is an expensive country. You need to work here. There are many opportunities, but you need to work. Especially for those who have just arrived. Here you can even see a lot of cars, the new ones from Tesla. And he occasionally works for Uber because he needs to have extra money, additional income.
He just goes on a route for a couple of free hours.
Yes, yes. There are a lot of apps now, even in Russian. You receive an order where you need to go, whom you need to pick up, to do.
We are heading to the northern suburbs of Toronto. For the Canadian dream, when people have money, they move here. Big houses, huge lawns, even forests on the plots. A basketball hoop is a mandatory attribute. Here it's set up right on the road. Owning a house here is not cheap. Most of them are on credit.
Here you have to take money from the government. Here you can afford everything, but you need to take money and borrow, and then pay it back. Here, people owe their whole lives.
A small settlement is being built here right away. This is what the finished houses look like. Stone, beautiful, powerful, monolithic, strong. But inside, it's just plywood and sawdust. This house will look the same, in the end, like these neighboring ones. The whole house is assembled only from boards and chipboard sheets. The porch, windows, walls, everything is wooden. This house with 3 garages was assembled the same way. Outside there are only mailboxes and a portable toilet for now, but soon everything here will be populated. This is another complex, also made of plywood. Perhaps this school isn't brick either. I couldn't figure it out. Outside the city, the roads are full of cars with boats. People are heading to the lakes, and we are. There are over 2 million lakes in Canada. Lakes. If you exclude the small ones, there are 30,000 large ones left. In general, Toronto residents go to the lakes as if they were going to the sea. Here, at Lake Simcoe, in a couple of years, they built an entire elite town from scratch with a yacht marina. There's a speed limit at the entrance. This is so we don't run over squirrels and raccoons.
There are raccoons here from the Konsevo area too. Raccoons are like people, they are so smart. Once I watch them, they stand as tall as I am. There's a trash bin, and the raccoon approached it like this, it tried. It looks as if it can't manage, it can't climb to such a height. Kind of calls another one. Another raccoon comes, stands on its shoulders. That one still can't reach. A third one approaches, climbs up for the third one, and with its hands quickly hop, and it climbed in there.
Field was like that.
Yes, there was nothing at all.
Australia, Spain, the French Riviera, anything but Canada comes to mind when you see something like this.
They just chill here and they enjoy it here in winter, autumn and summer. It's like a resort here and it's close to Toronto.
But in winter near such a bay it would be gloomy.
In winter, no, it's not gloomy at all, because people work very close in these cities. Like I mentioned, Toronto, Barrie, Aurora, and didn't sing. They go to work. In the evening, they come back, they relax just like you would, have a coffee, feed the ducks. There's no one around even in winter. Well, it's like Tuscany, fresh air. Tuscany.
People mostly live and relax here. There are pools, restaurants, and a bit of everything except for workplaces. They are in Toronto and the neighboring city of Barrie.
Something reminds us that we are in Canada. Hockey.
Cool cars are parked by cool townhouses, and Oleg is already hacking the door of one of them. Such a 3-story house costs $1,900,000. Directly from the balcony, you can access the waterfront, and ducks and women with beer on yachts float by. This is Oleg at another lake. He's fishing himself and sent his grandson to jump on the trampoline. In short, the guys have become Canadian.
What is the Canadian dream? You have a little cottage somewhere on the lake shore, you have a little boat, and you go there on the weekend by boat to fish, to relax in nature. This is how the white Canadian used to live, and it was everything for him. Now everything has changed.
Many are selling their boats.
It's an amazing country in how well they preserve nature. For example, I don't fish even here, because for fishing you first need to buy a permit. There they give you a booklet. In it, some fish you can catch, some you can't. I also have to determine from this booklet what I've caught. And then you need a ruler. If it's smaller or larger than the size, I have to release it. Even a lawyer couldn't figure it out. I think, yeah, well, this fishing...
As a lawyer, Valeria handles divorces, and in Canada, getting a divorce is very difficult.
Honestly, there's no point in getting a divorce here at all. It's so impractical. You lose in everything. You split the pension in half. Everything you've accumulated, you split it all in half. This in half, sometimes it's unclear where that line is drawn, because you have to calculate everything. Therefore, after 20 years, there's really no point in getting a divorce. You just endure it.
Hiring, for example, Valeria for a divorce is not cheap.
My hourly rate is $350. Then, if we go to court and we look at the entire process, from start to finish, it can cost from $25,000 to $50,000 to go through the entire court process. But that rarely happens, because usually when a person receives the second bill from us, they start to reconsider. Maybe I don't need to argue about all this. Maybe we can come to an agreement.
You save families.
No, they come to an agreement, they still get divorced, but they start to divorce amicably. What is a lawyer? It's like the gun in your hands. And with expensive bullets. So you won't just shoot left and right or wave it around like that. You will end up paying for lawyers for yourself and for someone else if you go to court for some silly reasons. And that's why they try to reach an agreement before going to court to avoid this later.
In this whole story, as in Canada in general, it is believed that men have few rights.
That's not quite true. That is, it's still being discussed. Unfortunately, if you read the legislation, it doesn't state that men have no rights and all rights belong to women. It just so happens that initially people enter marriage incorrectly, enter into marriage. That is, when young people get married, their number one problem is how to celebrate the wedding, what cake to order, and which limousine to book. The mother-in-law is thinking about what dinnerware set to gift, but in reality a prenuptial agreement covers many issues. For example, what to do with the budget, who will manage it. Very often people work, earn well, and one person might have a problem like gambling at a casino. And then he spends all the money, takes it out, or she goes shopping, and she might buy things on a credit card. And here you can swipe the credit card like this non-stop. Then it's 10K, 20K, you're in debt. Same for job. One earns well, the other earns less. But you are one whole. A person says, I worked from morning till night like a horse, and now I have to give it all away. But initially he had it wrong, the expectation was correct. By default, it's half hers. I went and bought a watch, an expensive one, half of it is hers. She went and bought a bag for $10,000, but half of it is mine. I went to the casino and lost $20,000. $10,000 of that debt is hers. Sometimes even what you accumulated before marriage is divided. This is called equalization, and you equalize. That is, you consider what each had before the wedding, and you try, even if everything was exactly the same, one had more money, the other less. Then after marriage you have to somehow equalize it, so that when you leave the marriage, you come out more or less on...
If it's a millionaire and an ordinary girl, then there will be equalization, even of what was before the marriage.
Do you know exactly how the richest women in the world made their money?
Yes, they divorced.
Can a woman make a man a millionaire? Of course.
If he's exactly a billionaire. And how is Canada different in all this?
Well, usually it's the wife. She calls the police and says, my husband is hitting me. The police arrive and arrest him. He can't come home. He's deprived of all housing, but he still has to pay for it, meaning he pays for the housing. She already lives there. They're alone with the children. Here's another problem. If you have permanent residency status, but are not yet a citizen, you can be deported. So it turns out that a family problem begins. They argued, and she moves on to family. They're getting divorced. There's a criminal case. For example, last week a woman called me. She's not a client or anything, just a woman inquiring. She said, I called the police to have my husband taken away, but I changed my mind. I don't want it to be like that. Because she didn't understand that, especially immigrants, have a flood of problems, some kind of heap of issues. And there were even cases when our people arrive, she calls the police, and a week later they've reconciled. They are driving together in a car, and the police stop them. You have an order, you can't be within 100 meters of each other. She says, well, we're all good now, we have no problems. You have problems, we don't have any problems anymore. And that's it, back to jail. The police need to be very careful. And it's better not to call over trivial matters. By the way, it's surprising that they respond very well to trivial matters. Because seriously, you don't see them around.
Valeria is outraged, and the problem of schools that can sick child protective services on parents.
And then they start taking the children away. Maybe some specific cases. This especially happens with Eastern families when they come from the East. These are Muslim families, and their child rearing is very strict. They use a strap right away. People come and they start interviewing you. They look at where you live, the conditions the child lives in. And then they write these reports. You have to be very careful with these services. They also look at the children afterwards. God forbid the child says, I get beaten at home. They start checking for bruises everywhere.
And there's no way back?
Well, it's already difficult. Once you start this process, it's hard to backtrack.
It's not like here. You go, withdraw the application, and the case is closed. Not here.
Let's figure it out.
Do they get bonuses for taking children away from families or what? Where does such zeal come from?
There's no zeal because it's like socialism and communism. It's all done so that I feel good about myself. I'm for truth, I'm for justice. They are eager to help. They genuinely think they are doing something good. What happens to these children afterwards?
It's a whole problem. They are then given to foster families. These are Canadian families who are paid for this. So you take a child into your home, you get paid for it, and the child lives with you, and you kind of raise them.
Valerie and his wife Saida have one child. At school, they study in English and French, and at home, they speak Russian and Pashto. That's one of the Afghan languages.
Yes, of course. Of course.
Oleg talked with his grandson, and we are trying to figure out the office coffee machine. Quarrels, scandals, fights.
No, that's all unacceptable.
If a neighbor bothers you with something, you can only make remarks through the manager.
When you make a remark directly to a person, they might, let's say, not understand it and get offended. And I worked at my previous job, a huge call center. Behind me was a colleague, let's say, from another country, and he wasn't doing very well. So every evening there was an unpleasant smell coming from his cubicle. A manager was sitting next to me and I didn't even tell him, and they told him, and the manager said, you just need to write to the person sitting across the partition and say, could you please make sure that when you come to a public place, everyone feels comfortable being next to you, so to speak.
You can't tell him wash his feet.
No, you can't. It's not polite. Then they'll make me out to be the bad guy. It wasn't said, but I felt it later. Someone told him, but nothing changed. He didn't change anything. And it's such a system that they can make a fool out of you.
You can feel it here. I understood this within a week, as if you shouldn't get involved anywhere. That's the logic. No remarks to anyone, nothing. Well, okay, but from our point of view, it's somehow illogical.
That's our character.
You can solve a problem by talking directly. But no, that's not how it's done here.
If someone hits you, you need to turn, smile first, and then say, please don't hit me.
You absolutely need to make sure that you don't accidentally hurt his fist with your face.
Yes, because he might then go and write a complaint against you, saying you were at fault.
And you can see that all these homeless people who wander around cause trouble, make noise and so on. And the youth who also act rowdy on the streets, they are really parasitic. They understand that impunity exists. No one will punish them for anything. No one will ever reprimand anyone. You can go and break bottles there.
Whoever makes a remark will be the one at fault. Of course, there are downsides. For example, I don't understand why I'm driving on the road where I should be going 60 or 70 kilometers per hour, but I have to go 40 kilometers per hour because there's a cyclist in front of me. Because a cyclist is like a motor vehicle driver.
You can end up being at fault even when doing nothing.
At first, when I arrived in Canada, yes, there were many things, let's say, that I was not satisfied with. But then I realized that this system cannot be changed. Every country has its own system, its own rules, its own laws, different people. Why do you need to prove something to someone?
Usually, when looking for a job, a person sends applications to different companies and waits to be accepted somewhere.
For a realtor, it's the opposite. A realtor looks for an employer, and the realtor decides whether they will work with this brokerage or not.
But still, you rack your brain on how to sell more, like...
You decide everything, from how many clients you find, how much you sell, how much you buy. No one will give you anything.
Oleg can work in the office whenever he wants. Today, no one wants to work.
Today, no one wants to work except me. To be continued.
For Sunday, after all.
You come in, put down your anxious little suitcase, and relax.
What's in there?
I have it. It's a whole bag.
I flew to the other side of the world with indeed less luggage than you.
Just not here, right here.
Oh! 10 kilograms?
Well, here, as usual, there's a computer, a device that measures the length, width of a house or apartment. When there's a Zoom meeting, I do a smart look and listen to it. And a huge number of various files, folders. Well, they basically create the weight of this bag, chilips, for small tailors, you see.
In the company there are 600 people.
A lot of Iranians, a lot of Chinese. This broker, specifically where I work, has more than 50% Iranians and Chinese.
Not everyone can sell something.
According to statistics, about 20% of realtors can have 100 plus deals a year. The remaining 80% might have one or none at all. But having one deal a year is not really sustainable. If you don't have money, you sit down to drive for Uber, earn some money, or go to construction, depending on who you are. But to be a successful realtor, you need to work full-time. If you don't commit, you can't just sit around and expect things to happen, as there's very high competition. When I sell you an apartment, it can be from 1 to 5% of the value of the property. I sold one house in a good location. It's about 30 kilometers from here. My salary, I received a commission. That was decent. I earned a decent salary. It's several tens, 3 types. This is one of the most expensive areas. Maybe even in all of Canada. Let's say Ontario for sure.
Here we are passing by rapper Drake's house. At the entrance is his bronze head.
Houses here start from 5 million and up.
Using the database, Oleg, we are checking the most expensive and the cheapest housing. Toronto.
The largest one. It's located not far from, basically kind of downtown.
About 18 rooms and 8.
And it's over 500 square meters, but no one is buying it for almost 500 days.
Finding a really cheap one is much harder than you might think.
For an apartment.
Let's try a bit.
Well, 200, right? For example, 200.
No, just one in short. One for 250.
This is the main thing people pay attention to when buying an apartment. You see, the maintenance fee. It's 717. You pay it every month. You pay for what is probably in the building. Thank you, Jim. For planting flowers around the house, for clearing the snow, and Electricity, water, gas are additional.
In short, you buy your apartment and it's like, ooh, you continue paying rent for it at $700 a month. Recently, floods have swept across all of Eastern Europe. Toronto also often gets flooded, especially in this area.
Because of the downpour. And this river, which rose, flooded everything here. There was water here cars couldn't pass through a week or two ago. Is this a frequent occurrence? Well, not often, but it happens. It happens about once a year.
We are approaching the Mythica area. It's something like a second downtown, a sort of Dubai-like area of Toronto. The happiest young Canadian families move here. And if they don't have money, couples in love come here to kiss and take selfies on the green lawn with a view of the city center.
These seconds, they were built over 10 to 12 years. Downstairs, there are little restaurants and bars. Over there, where we go in winter, they set up an artificial hockey rink. Young people come to play hockey.
To get into the apartment, Oleg has to complete a quest and find the right safe with the key.
Sometimes when you don't know the instructions, tell me, how is it possible? Sometimes it happens that you open the frames and people are waiting for you and their time is limited. We open. The prize is a car and a penthouse. For $2,190,000. Not expensive. Basically, consider it free. Take two.
While I have the chance, I'll walk through a millionaire's apartment. Yachts and strange roofs of neighboring houses dangle beneath my feet. It's like a Soviet bus stop here.
Welcome to the best view. Toronto. Toronto, mama.
My knees are shaking a little. Oh, how hot!
The hairstyle, can you mess it up?
Yes, and you can mess up your pants too. Renting an apartment for a migrant here is a tough task because it's very difficult to evict a non-payer later.
They might ask you from 10 to 30 questions before they decide whether to take you or not. If they made a mistake and took someone who tomorrow says, for example, I lost my job, I can't pay, that's it. They're stuck. And it's difficult to evict them because it's practically impossible. You can't do anything to them.
Easier for us. You say 2 weeks they're out.
Of course. People come here and say, why is it so difficult to rent a place here? That's why.
Because you just arrived, no one trusts you at all. Is finding a guarantor in Canadians an option?
If something happens, they'll go to him.
He's legally obliged to.
Of course, he will pay on your behalf. You understand? Or the second option. You say, well, besides the first and last month, as is customary, I'll also pay 5 months in advance. There. Well, for example, roughly 6 to 7 months in total, right? And someone might say, I'll pay a year in advance.
Valery is exactly the person who got caught.
You can't evict. It's difficult. I still can't evict. I've been renting out an apartment for a very long time, and everything was fine. I've been doing this since 2010 for 14 years now. This is the first time someone refuses to pay. And he hasn't paid at all since March.
What does a lawyer do in this case? Do you go to a lawyer or handle it yourself?
It's a tribunal, not a court. And why? There are no lawyers there, sadly. If they were there, we would have sorted things out long ago.
The property owner is, a second-class citizen. Their opinion is the last to be asked.
As a family law attorney, I can say that, in my view, men here are also powerless, second-class citizens.
But Valery is not in the worst situation. People have taken out mortgages for apartments and houses. Here it's a must-have. You absolutely must have a mortgage. Interest rates have jumped. What now? Are people going bankrupt? What should they do with the property they've acquired and can no longer afford?
They try to sell it to at least minimize their losses, to somehow at least break even, if not make a profit. On my street, they're selling, and so far no one can sell anything.
You can pay off the loan by renting out part of the property. For example, the basement. Many do this, but not Valery.
It's a place we could rent out, but we don't. I really don't want anyone else in our home. And if you rent to students, it's even better for you. You start making these little rooms and rent them to students by the bed. Brampton's is a well-known city where many people from India live. And there, it's trendy to make a house through these rooms. And there in the basement, there will be 10-20 Indians living and enjoying.
Besides car tools, Valery has a very expensive collection of retro computers here.
Apple became Apple thanks to computers like these. This is a monitor and it comes together. And probably the most unique thing I have that I found, which was hard to find, is the first laptop. It's a big piece of equipment.
Wow, that's a laptop.
That's a laptop. And it's very heavy, 8 kilograms.
Steve Jobs' garage looks like this.
Yes. Look how many there are. I have a bunch of these. 8, I think, I'm not sure. These were monitors.
IMAX, the first thing they released that became popular.
Here there are 500 of these cassettes, or 400.
And what kind of boiler is currently running now? Or is it ventilation?
That's basically how all houses are set up. So is it in your basement? The cooling and heating system is located in the basement. For example, the air conditioner is outside and a pipe runs from it. And then the air circulates throughout the house. The same goes for warm air. When it's hot air, it blows in the winter as well. Again, we've been here for a very long time and we really have no reason to move. I mean, we could move to a house nearby, but it might be just a little bigger, like by 500 square feet. It might be a little bigger, but basically it would be the same.
You'll still fill it up with cassettes and tapes.
Yes, but the basement must be bigger.
I spent a few nights in just such a basement, which they rent out to Indians. The room costs more than a nice apartment back home, and the partitions are so thin, you can hear the neighbor talking on the phone. The shared bathroom is always a complete mess. A layer of dirt, someone's hair. It's brutal. The kitchen is also shared. They say you can drink water from the tap in Canada, but I drink bottled water. Eat butter with food. The maple cookies are delightful. They are the most popular here. Maple has a strange taste. I've never tried anything like it, but don't forget it, because it's distinctive. The cream vaguely reminds me of nut butter, but it's specifically stated that there are no nuts. If everyone is noisy at night, by early morning, there's no one around. Most migrants in Canada rent like this, some kind of bunk, as cheaply as possible. And a passport from 6 a.m., preferably working 2 jobs. There are 3 rooms in the basement. On the layouts, these are also rooms. And some rooms, as I understand, are further divided into 3 to 4 sleeping places. In short, they turn one house into a whole hostel. But the neighborhood is excellent. However, it's turning from prestigious to not so much. Migrants are gradually taking over. Just stepped out of the house in the morning, and there's this. Completely fearless. Quite something to drive out. If we take a ride around the neighborhood, we'll see there are very narrow houses, and Oleg and I are just entering one of them. Between the houses, there's only a narrow passage and a small fence. And this is the main room in the house. It spans the entire width of the house. From the terrace, you can easily peek into the neighbor's place. Such houses are very popular in Canada, where there are 2 separate independent entrances. The owners use the first and second floors. The basement can be rented out. And with that money, they can partially cover the mortgage taken out for the house. There is a separate entrance here, and the owners do not cross paths with the tenants. If you take such a house on a mortgage, how much is the mortgage approximately per month?
Approximately, he will be paying around 7,000 for the whole house, and if he takes in a tenant, the tenant will pay him. Around 1 to 800, 2,000, so about 5,000 will remain for him, and 2,000 is paid by the person living here. A huge number of people live in basements, people rent them out. Well, I would say about 70% of the basements that owners rent out are not officially constructed.
We were looking for a cheap area in Toronto and didn't find one. We only found a relatively affordable one.
This is the Etobicoke area, very close to Lake Ontario. Good infrastructure, very close to downtown. If there's no traffic, it's about 15-20 minutes by car and you can get there. Here the price is around 1,800, considering that the average price for a one-bedroom apartment in Toronto is at least somewhere around 2,100. These houses are already about 50 years old.
Well, like our Khrushchevkas.
Yes, that's the French school.
Your squirrels are really black. Where are the red ones?
No red ones in.
This is my first episode about Canada, but there are already videos on the channel about England, France, and for example, South America. Links are in the description below the video. Open them in new tabs while you finish watching this video. Being an illegal immigrant, it was hard for Andre to save money. He managed to buy a car.
Laughter. Yeah, right. Worked hard, you could say. I bought it for 10,000, worked really hard.
So you understood that you were working hard for the car?
Yes, because it's very difficult here without a car.
Did it get easier with the car?
Yes. More opportunities for getting around for yourself if you want. And for any job, if you go to work, the first thing they'll ask is if you have transportation, if you can get there or there. I might have. In any city there's work too, and you need to get around.
Why not just quit construction, roofing, and start driving for Uber? What's the benefit?
Because I take on a project and complete it. I work as an assistant, for example. To me,
already
fine.
Just more, right?
Yeah.
And you can't earn that much with Uber?
I think not.
So you worked a couple of years illegally, now you have a legal job and you suddenly started paying taxes. Did your income drop?
It dropped a little.
Seriously? Is it lower now?
Because yes, because the tax rate is very high and you can feel it.
Could you theoretically continue working illegally to pay less in taxes? Why don't you do that?
If you want to get something officially like a car loan, for instance, you need to show that you work legally. This income is all legal and it's necessary for your history here.
In short, it's needed for the future anyway.
It's hard for illegals, you know, to get everything in order.
It's a total monjo here. Well, the roads are about the same as ours.
Basically, Grandpa, I still have a good one.
Driving into downtown, you can get dizzy from the skyscrapers and lose your sight from the flashing lights. Ambulances, beautiful fire trucks, and a lot of police. Today they have blocked everything here. Everything is shiny and beautiful, but you can easily take a wrong turn and run into some high and sleeping guys on the floor. A tent at the intersection. That's normal too. Even in the most touristy places, it's not always pleasant. There's usually an ice rink here in winter. Have you skated? Yes. Andre works a lot, but sometimes he lets loose. This weekend he rented a cottage by the lake with friends. Recently, they also partied at a club. There's a whole street of them here. All the clubs are here, right?
Yes, yes. There are many places where you can hang out.
And how much do you typically spend on such outings?
Yeah, you can easily spend around $200, $300 or even more, depending on what you are purchasing.
But is it really possible to hook up with a local girl?
In principle, yes, it's possible. But here, you know, they don't really appreciate it. You know, like maybe back in Moldova, you know, those serious relationships, perhaps something like that. People here, you know, party a bit more, they relax more.
How do they typically behave in the clubs? Do they usually drink a lot, or have you seen any fights?
Not really fights, but they do drink, yes. Hardcore too. You work all week, you know, at your job, and then, you know, on a day off, you know, you just want to relax, you know. You go out, for example, to the city, to a pub somewhere, and it's like a class day, and you want to let loose. Yes, to have a proper unwind.
Valeria's spouse is also a lawyer. That's how they met.
The wife speaks Russian.
Yes, I can for you. Thank you. Quiet. These are slippers, yes.
Thank you very much, slippers.
Hello?
Dimitators, this is...
Everything came.
Yes. Here, speak a little bit English. Yeah, well, speaks a little Russian. Saida's mom speaks English. And now she's with us quietly.
So, but how long have you been speaking to each other, like more? In what language do you speak English?
We have a whole mix. She speaks very well in Russian. Compared to my Afghan, that is, I don't speak at all.
Just a couple of words indeed. They celebrate both Ramadan and Easter together.
This is Canada. So what is Canada? It's when, let's say, I'm Russian, my wife is Afghan, or even neighbors. A neighbor is Arab and another neighbor is Jewish, and everyone lives peacefully, harmoniously. But now it's not quite as peaceful and harmonious, it's starting to shake a little. We are very similar in terms of our family values. We have different cultures, but actually, this core, which is there, is really very similar for us. And we, without even realizing it, are very close, for example, to this culture. In fact, Afghans are very well disposed towards Russians. And there's none of that. They don't have contempt or anything like that. That we fought, yes, and are supposedly enemies. Yes. Russia, as a matter of fact, for example, had favorable relations with Afghanistan, then, for instance, this problem wouldn't exist. Well, as Afghans believe, if America hadn't been there, then over those 20 years nothing would have improved.
About the Taliban. Are there jokes about you, or should we not? It's not funny.
Yes, why is it okay? But among ourselves, we're fine. My aunt prays, she does it according to the rules.
Today we are going to the temple, and on Saturday we are going to...
Yes, on Sunday.
Yes, there are Russian churches nearby. Well, there's one small one, but it's already in the city center. But there are many more mosques here. We don't have a chapel at home, that is, we have icons.
Well, here you only see Orthodox.
Well, yes, we have the Koran somewhere, I don't know, lying around. Well, in this room, Orthodoxy prevailed. They wear this when they have a celebration, then they put it on. And when, for example, they have this Ramadan, they dress in these clothes, and I take them to the mosque.
I also have Afghan attire. Yes, but I couldn't find it.
Here we will have the Bible and the Quran too, next to each other.
Well, just in case you don't put one on top of the other, do you?
We have here
Hello.
kebab. Are we eating halal meat? But you know, we have beer here.
But we have beer here. Yes, it's not really allowed, but we will have beer. But we are in Canada. Look, we have a whole... All of this was gifted to me by clients. Alcohol is the biggest shock for Saida.
So alcohol is a shock for Afghans in general?
I was told that they drink alcohol when we met. I didn't know it was like alcohol.
What is this anyway?
Yes, because in our culture it's an illusion. Yes, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Now I know that it's Russian, it's normal. Many years ago I only thought, who drinks, it means that this person is very, how to say it, funny or depressive, or something happened. But when I knew that Valery would drink...
Well, when a Russian drinks, it somehow becomes more fun. And Valery would reach for the accordion and start dancing.
When I said there was nothing, I was very happy. That, no problem, no.
But you never tried it?
No. I can't. I think if I try, probably I will. I will die.
She knew nothing about alcohol. She didn't even know the difference between wine, beer, vodka and whiskey.
It's poison.
All the same, all bad. If I drink, it's at home.
Especially as a lawyer. It can cast a shadow.
I automatically lose my license if I'm caught driving drunk.
I think Russian culture is different from ours. From us. When there are guests or at home, women eat separately and men eat separately.
See this sometimes, or when there are guests.
Depends on the guests. If they are ours, then no. Our guests wouldn't understand. If they are their guests, then yes. For example, if a female acquaintance of Saida comes over, I don't stay around. I either go to the basement or upstairs. So I'm not nearby. They don't even see me. Why? It's not customary for them to, that is, women are with women separately, and there are no men there. There, even if indeed her husband certainly brings her as a guest, then
he will leave her go.
Yes, he will leave her and go, but he knows she will be alone with women and there are no other men there.
Where else but in Canada can I eat Afghan food?
What is this? This is... So this is pilaf.
Yes, this is specifically Afghan pilaf. They take this kebab, they wrap it in flatbread, they will, that's how you eat it, right? And they also add this thing. This is considered Afghan?
Well, in your office, the Canadians who can be called native, whose parents were also born here, can you estimate roughly in percentages?
It's a small percentage.
The natives tend to live further from the center.
They just, when Friday evening comes, they don't go downtown. They get in their truck, attach a boat, and head to Muskoka. And there at their cottage, they settle in, fish, and read a book. And when you pass by on another boat, they wave at you.
Leave! Canada!
And they smile. When I first came to Canada, the first time I was at a job interview in Toronto, in the Bay Street area, there was this white guy, and I was above him, and he told me to go back to my country. I was just at an interview. Maybe I'll take this job.
I'm gonna take your job now.
The second time when my mom was at an interview, it was in Toronto, on Jarvis Street. I have a great affection for this city. It's golden and special to us. For my mom, it was probably even harder.
She speaks English poorly.
She was a little scared.
She got frightened.
That was when I wasn't around, at that exact time, when I was not present.
Because they don't think I'm Russian.
With an Iranian.
Yes, it happened on the bus too. There were indeed African Americans. These were actually young girls who...
Yeah, but let's not say that.
Yes, but let's not say it like that.
Listen to the lawyer, don't say it like that. They have a real sensitivity toward black people. Is it similar to the States, roughly?
No. This has started now because the Black Lives Matter movement began. And they started this topic, to develop it here as well. Although there were never slaves in Canada. There was no one here at all. There were just white people and a refrigerator. It's cold here, and no one came here. Canada actually exists for 150 years. Well, a little more now. And how was it founded? For example, Canadian citizenship didn't exist until 1951, 1952. That is, you couldn't have a Canadian passport. Only after World War II did Canadian citizenship and a Canadian passport come into existence.
Despite the proximity of Canada and the USA, according to Oleg, their mentality is different.
No, Canada is simpler. People from different countries are simpler, they are kinder. It's somehow tense there. There's an overabundance of weapons, a huge number of such cases. Shootings in schools, shootings in colleges, 5, 10, 12, 17 people die. Here in Canada, there's nothing like that.
Who wants to take a break from shootings, come to Canada for the weekend, without a gun? Did you ever consider the States? During the time you've been living in Canada, you must have thought about it at least a little.
When I was 20, I considered everything. Today Pakistan, tomorrow America, the day after tomorrow Canada, and then Moldova. When I wanted to emigrate, I had two choices, to go to Australia or to go to Canada. Then after two...
Oh, of course.
I really like it here in Canada, the way relationships are. They'll come up to you, they'll ask for permission, they see you smiling and ask if they can take it. Well, not like that.
Well, it's like under the guise as if it's sincere.
Sincere.
In attempts to consider the USA, we rise higher.
Over there, where the haze is, where those chimneys are, that's Lake Ontario. If you swim across it, you'll reach the American side. To the right is Niagara. To the left, figuratively speaking, are Montreal, Quebec, and the Atlantic Ocean.
This part of the city is far from downtown, but financially managing this apartment will also be difficult.
This apartment will cost approximately around 3,400. 3,400, 1,400, 3,500, 35, 50 years, and 1,500 and 1,550 meters together for a one-bedroom apartment there, less than 50 square meters, somewhere around 2,400. He also needs to buy insurance. It's called tenant insurance, which protects the tenant themselves. For example, if your friends come over and someone feels unwell, falls off the balcony, gets injured, right? Because the owner does not take responsibility. James, the pool. This is a yoga studio.
Turned off the water? No pity, all fine.
Here they can wash a dog. From the street, when they bring it here, they can wash the dog so that its paws are clean. And a separate room.
This worker doesn't speak English at all, and instead of showing us the way, it's easier for her to just take us by the hand.
Well, this is the so-called lounge. People can also arrange this for themselves here. If you have a birthday or just come to sit and read.
There's really a birthday here. From this apartment in downtown, you can see the island, one of Toronto's main attractions.
That's it, opposite. It's called Ontario Island. This is a water taxi. You take this taxi and go there to Ontario Island. This apartment costs 2.5 million.
If I definitely lived here for that kind of money, I absolutely wouldn't leave the pool.
This is the master bedroom when a showing is happening. It is absolutely forbidden for both the realtor and the people viewing the apartment to use anything, including the bathroom, under any circumstances.
Well, I understand wanting to take a bath, but you can't.
Oh, you can't.
Also, every realtor must leave a business card. There's a whole pile of them here.
When you come here, not just me, many people, they arrive and start writing in their resume. I was a manager there, in sales there, and so on. His resume is like this, and everywhere it's manager, 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 the meaning of the word manager.
In Canada, it's very different. For us, a manager. It's almost like every consultant, but here it's a director. What kind of country is this where everyone comes as a manager and everyone is a manager?
Yes, every real estate agent has these signs. When he sells a house, for instance, in that area, he has his own listing. He puts up such a sign at major intersections with his name, phone number, and an arrow pointing to where the house or property is for sale.
Well, isn't there some kind of war? Don't competitors come by? No.
No. It's final. Final.
What jobs did you have?
The first job I had, a friend of mine got me a job at, I didn't know English. He got me a job with at the job where he used to work before. It was dismantling cars. I worked for a couple of months, especially that winter, I remember. It was about 20 degrees, minus 20, minus 30. Cold. You need to... All these cars were outside. These cars needed to be dismantled and everything with your hands and all the icy metal. I would do push-ups 10, 20 times from the ground, run a bit, then focus, get back to it and unscrew things there. That was my first job. You can't just become a realtor right away. Here you can just go to the sauna. You go here that being a realtor is good, print business cards the next morning and suddenly you're a realtor. It doesn't work like that here. No, of course not. You have to study here to pass exams and get a realtor's license. And what was on the exam? There was a lot on the exam. You need to study one by one. There, I think you take either 7 or 8 exams, and for each exam, to pass it, you need to... I had a book that was about this thick. There are a lot of laws, rules, amendments, how real estate works, how you should treat each other, how you should serve clients. I also finished college here. I graduated from a college here called George Brown College. And by the way, I had probably about 12 subjects. And surprisingly, I remember studying for about 10 months. And surprisingly, I remember liking all the subjects.
So, do you need real estate in Canada? Contact Oleg. He is definitely a professional in this. The contact details will be in the description below the video. Right in downtown we dove in to eat, and here it's like a cafeteria.
Yes. When I go there to the island with my grandson, I bring him here and feed him.
In the cafeteria, what's cool is that all the food is the same price, whether it's pasta or meat. Everything is 2.79 per 100 grams. I, like a fool, took a bunch of pasta, not knowing yet that they were priced like shrimp. At the checkout, everything is weighed in one container. Let's call it national Canadian food.
Mexican, Asian, Italian, and this probably adds soul and just slices pizza too. Ukraine with Ukrainian skills.
For the first time, I'm eating pasta with pizza, pieroga. These will now be associated with Canada for me.
Next to us is a very strange biker.
I'm impressed of your uniform. You look like an Iron Man, you know? Kind of injury magnet.
We arrived at the cemetery. It might seem like an inappropriate topic for lunch, but they are so charming here that you want to organize a picnic right between the tombstones.
Well, I would prefer to lie somewhere in a place like this, rather than where we have fences, some kind of barriers, grave upon grave. And here you could at least take a blanket and have a picnic. Look how quiet it is here, right? Yes.
No one is making noise. Even this killer fly, Guy, isn't making noise. It just landed on me to take a ride around the area. And this is a typical Canadian retirement home.
Retired people live here. They have restaurant-style meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and nannies take care of them.
Today I'm a passenger, but passengers often get fined here too.
I recently paid a fine. About $300, approximately $278. Because I was driving, but in a car with someone who was driving. I was in the back, in the middle seat, and I wasn't buckled up. Because the police stopped us and issued a fine. To me, the passenger sitting in the back unbuckled, and I got the fine, while the driver didn't get anything at all. He said, "Give me your ID as the fine is issued. There, your first name, last name."
Like Oleg's driver also got caught. If you pay the fine quickly, there's a 50% discount.
When I arrived here in Canada, during the first week I had such a jet lag that exactly at 12, at 1 in the afternoon, I was driving and I was just falling asleep. My eyes, I really needed to prop them open with matches. I absolutely couldn't drive. But I did run a red light twice. I remember I got my first fine. It was approximately about $250. I went to court. Back then it wasn't online and they reduced it, I think, by half. I paid there. About $125 probably.
And driving isn't done properly. Only non-alcoholic. First of all, you'll lose your license for at least a year. Then there will be a fine. Usually people hire a lawyer. A lawyer is expensive. You're already out about $10,000 just financially.
If you don't hire a lawyer,
you're simply at fault for everything. You agreed with everything they charged you with, and then you'll have to think, is it a criminal record? It already is. You won't be able to go to America.
According to Oleg, when moving, it's important to communicate with those who have successfully adapted. Otherwise, you might repeat others' mistakes due to bad advice.
The lucky ones are those who came and embraced it. I have relatives who recently arrived. They've only been here for 3 months. And they are happy because they have professions that are in demand like that. The wife, she works. She has worked with children all her life, and he worked as a dental technician. This is also in demand here. There aren't many good ones, and relatively they found jobs quickly, but this is rare, it happens.
There is a lot of competition among migrants.
In this country, in the year 2023, about 2 million individuals arrived in total, including students. Currently, students here from that number They account for about 800,000. Then there are refugees, asylum seekers, people on permanent residence, about 2 million.
And they are really fighting hard. Asphalt.
Of course.
And Canadians tolerating everyone.
When I arrived, we went to the park, and the next day we were sitting there. There were these geese. We were feeding them. Canadians greeted us. Hello, good morning, how are you? We replied. Hello, did you just arrive? They said, yes, welcome to Canada. Just like that. And they call the police. People who come here with children, if they are not IT specialists, if they want to work, so to speak, with their heads, as we are used to, working with their heads and not with their hands, it will be very difficult for them here. This country is perfect for those who worked there. Installing windows,
Labor work.
crashes out, yes, floors, did that. Here, those who come and want to work with their brains, with their heads, it's very difficult because a huge number of people come here from different countries. And there's a lot of competition. And everyone has brains. Don't you feel homesick?
For me, not really at the moment. Maybe, to go see relatives exactly, but to go back there, I probably won't be able to get used to it right away. Yes, I can go, stay a bit back and forth. But I think after some time I will want to come back.
What do your relatives say about you being here?
They've gotten used to it.
For those who just joined, my name is Jennifer Betancourt. I have a little Instagram, you can follow me here.
Music playing softly.
What can I say, Canada? Another continent. Its own mentality, its quirks, its minuses and pluses. One way or another, the similar pluses outweigh since more and more people are eager to come here. This was my first episode about this country. There will be at least a few more. To make sure you don't miss them, subscribe to my YouTube, Instagram and Telegram right now. Everywhere I am, Vova Karmanov. Goodbye.